Hey there, friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and if you paid attention to the channel at all, you know that I'm very excited about Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, and we got a bunch of previews today, including one from IGN where it says, we played Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and did not like it. So I want to kind of give my thoughts on their feedback and why I think some of the complaints that I've seen online about this game are overblown. I am a fan, admittedly, of live service games and superhero games and this whole genre, but I know a lot of people are on the fence, so I just want to clear some things up personally that I think are essentially mistakes or rushes to judgment with this these previews that we've seen from some of these different companies, you know?
Worth it.
The best part of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League after playing it for a few hours is the story, and yes, it certainly seems like you will be killing.
That's the opposite of what I would have thought, to be honest.
Your face always looks.
I thought the story would be the thing that suffered the most from this being a live service ongoing game.
So, what?
Lots of death happening here. That's also a big part of the problem I have with the entire premise.
That makes no sense to me.
Shake that there's no way Rocksteady is going to let any of this stick. Our heroes have done terrible things. There will be a time reversal mechanic or some alternate Earth timeline that comes along and washes away all of the terrible awfulness that happens during the story.
So, a couple things here. One, the previews that we've seen online, including this one from IGN, only cover the game up until the first boss, the Flash. And so I think knowing what's going to happen, we don't have any idea yet how the whole story is going to unfold. So I think that's a little premature. The other thing, it's called Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. It's going to be over the top. It's going to involve some comic book zaniness that I think is to be expected with a game of this nature. If you don't enjoy that type of stuff, this game might not be for you. But I don't understand that being a criticism when that's the premise of not only the Suicide Squad, but superhero material in general.
From enslaving a child form of poison ivy to straight up watching your heroes murder people, there's a lot here to make you feel a bit uncomfortable about the journey you're being
That's
taken on.
the point though, right? In my opinion.
I put the bloody bomb in the head ages ago.
What?
And when you pair this disconnect with game mechanics straight out of the likes of Destiny, Anthem, or Marvel's Avengers,
I heard there's a lot of Borderlands crossover with this game too.
Together in a way that works. The fun just wasn't there for me, at least not yet. Let me explain in more detail. The story.
So one of the things I have heard is that the deeper in, the better your builds get, the more fun the game is. That happens with a lot of looter shooter types. Again, Borderlands, you look at Destiny, you look at all those types of games, and they tend to be better once you are really kitted out. So it's hard to judge when you just have the first couple hours of the story in hand.
It has its fun moments, yes, and the team banter, at least during the cutscenes, is when Kill the Justice League is at its best.
Awesome.
Yeah, it seemed very fun so far.
So sweet. He's not gonna make it.
The cutscenes have clearly been given a lot of love. Meanwhile, the character models look great, the voice acting is on point.
Agreed.
And there are a lot of moments where I genuinely laugh thinking this could be enough to carry me through the messy and tired open world missions. While they could reverse time to fix the morality issues at play, chances are that will be difficult given the planned expansions, story additions, and gear chases coming later in the form of free updates. That means we'll
The fact that the
stuck with
updates are free
terrible
is
things
massive
that
for me.
transpire, and if the name sticks, stuck with a dead Justice League. At one point, the team puts a bomb in the head of Poison Ivy, who just happens to be a child. But hey, they punch Boomerang for putting a bomb in her head, so let's move on from that whole enslaving a child thing.
Again, a child is different from what Poison Ivy is. If you've paid attention to the reveal, she is essentially a clone. So while she is a child and there's questions about that, I think that having that sense of morality in a game like this, in a Suicide Squad game, is kind of crazy to me. It doesn't add up. Plus, maybe the characters try to free her.
Waller's thing, but I'm using it to illustrate a point. All of these things in one package feels like an odd mix. Rocksteady had
How?
a winning formula with the Batman games and is trying to write a completely new book, but so far, lightning is not in this bottle. A live service game from Rocksteady is not what I had on my wish list this year. The team is single-handedly responsible for making some of the best combat I have ever experienced. The Predator sections in the Arkham series also allowed you to tackle them with stealth or brute force, adding further flavor and variety to Bruce Wayne's vigilantism. To this day, in fact, you can find...
So what I will say is, as much as I enjoyed the Batman games, two problems that I have with this. One is that we've seen now between Spider-Man and some other games, a lot of games kind of follow this Arkham style. So it's not really new and fresh anymore, and just putting a fresh coat of paint on it is not going to make it suddenly as appealing as it once was, because we've seen 4 different Arkham games from Rocksteady already. Not only that, but I think a big problem that I have is that studios want to do new, exciting things. They want to move forward instead of being stuck doing the same thing over and over again. And that's something that I don't think people allow the studios to do all the time. Yes, is there questions about the live service aspect? For sure. But I also think having a game where you can incorporate multiple different characters, a completely unique story that's over the top and can be a lot of fun, is something that the developer should be given license to do.
Ridiculous takedown montages on YouTube and TikTok for Batman Arkham Knight. Unfortunately for Suicide Squad, once the fun story bits end, you're left with a much less inspired combat system and an open world that's filled with tedious tasks that are more about grinding through traditional tropes like point defense or collect the material and turn it in.
This game is more about builds and stuff like that,
such as the powerful feeling of takedowns, and there does seem to be some depth to the build variety, but you'll do it surrounded by teammates who won't shut up with their quips, which quickly becomes annoying.
Feels good to be an apex predator.
I'm sure you can mute them if you really need
to.
to.
The point that you'll get 2 to 3 lines of dialogue overlapping while you're just waiting for your crew at a checkpoint. And when the combat does start, it has its fun moments, but it also has weird issues like long animations to regen your shield, or you'll get knocked out of an animation for unclear reasons. I thought it was just me, but it also happens in this provided footage straight from WB. While we have this provided boss fight footage against the Flash to reference, I just want to mention that I found this fight incredibly annoying. There's no indication of where the Flash is most times, and he's the Scarlet Speedster, so he's just constantly zipping around the map. That didn't make the fight hard, it just made it frustrating. You get a handful of shots on him before he teleports to the next location, so you're just trying to chase him down or catch him standing in one spot long enough to get hits in before he does it all again. I do wish there was a bit of a he's down, get him moment.
I mean, it's the Flash. I think that's something that, again, everyone's entitled to their opinions on the game, but it seems like a weird criticism to be judging the Flash combat when he's the fastest man alive and he's racing around. You're going to have limited DPS windows. You're going to try to do your builds based around how you can do as much damage in as little time as possible. That's part of the fight. I think that's something that maybe there should be an indicator for where he's at or something like that. But even so, you're fighting with 4 people potentially, so everyone should be able to find him. And maybe it gets harder with communication and you have more difficult challenges when you have a full squad going at a higher difficulty. So we'll see.
But unfortunately, it seems like that trope wasn't used here. Now, WB also sent over some footage of an experienced Shark player wrecking shop, so I'll include some footage of their gameplay in this video preview to show
this high-end level gameplay looks like a lot of fun
versus a couple of hours at a preview event.
This is what I've seen that has me really excited about the game. Once you get to high level, you can do some insane stuff, it looks like. And I'm a King Shark main, so this is going to be a ton of fun. I don't know if I want to go shotgun or a minigun, though, with him.
In the open world, however, missions tend to favor many of the tired and true types, which makes them feel a bit like uninspired filler. Like, stop me if you've heard this one before, you defend a point from waves of enemies that spawn. Sound familiar? Now imagine every time you defeat a handful of these enemies, you just stand around waiting with nothing to do. This was exactly what happened.
Hopefully that gets
in one of the
improved,
core
for
story
sure.
missions, and the padding feels completely unnecessary. When the next quest started, I stood there while Amanda Waller called my character on comms and bantered with Poison Ivy before sending me back to the other end of the map to save citizens in a flying bus that looked like it's straight out of Fortnite.
I hate this task force.
I'm looking forward
At
to
least
being able to
the
summon the
puzzles
vehicles
are
and
making
stuff.
a return from the Arkham games, bringing at least one familiar fun activity to Suicide Squad's Metropolis.
Within this city's fiscal stash, Lex Luthor sits upon your cash.
At least I hope they're fun because I didn't actually get to solve any of them. The potential saving grace for all my gripes could be that the whole combat system comes together a lot better when you get to sit down and actually make a build, which we didn't have it.
I'm assuming that once you're able to make your own builds, everything is going to look much, much different. And we see it in games like this all the time. Like, Destin is a long-time looter-shooter player, and the game feels significantly different from level 1 to max level with high-end gear. It just doesn't really make sense to me to judge based on a limited gameplay a game like this, especially when it's intended to be a co-op game that you play with friends or other people matchmaking online.
A chance to do right away at the preview event. For some context, we started playing through the same tutorial from the beta and picking a character, Deadshot in my case. After that, we jumped straight into Chapter 3 where I tried out Shark because the character I had been playing on was taken. What I didn't realize was that Chapter 3 gives you complete build control, and having played on a different class, it took me a bit of our session to get warmed up to the new movement mechanics Shark has compared to Deadshot. If we look back at that provided Flash gameplay, it looks like the player has a good grasp at movement, but it all comes back to similar core mechanics. Aim gun, shoot gun, and those core mechanics in a game like Destiny really save it. Here, it just feels samey across the board, even with each character's abilities sprinkled in. I didn't really get time to look at my gear stats and throw something together to try out, but I did try a build recommendation from Jack Hackett, production manager at Rocksteady, but again, I didn't really have enough time to get used to how it's supposed to flow together. However, his excitement about the build possibilities does continue to give me a glimmer of hope. To give you a taste of what...
That's, again, this all doesn't check out for me personally. I know I disagree with a lot of what he's saying, and I understand the criticisms. I do think that it's hard when you have a game that is intended to be played at max level with all the best gear and make it have the same amount of fun early on, because you have to get from point A to point B. You want to make the game fun from the very beginning, but again, it's like one of those things that if you're constantly leveling up, constantly getting new and better gear, tinkering with your builds, everything will come together over time. So it's a weird judgment when you just get limited hands-on gameplay, and you're essentially just speculating how much fun it's going to be.
What you'll be looking at in terms of complexity, there are weapon afflictions that attach an elemental effect to weapons like Deep Freeze that does cold damage for a period of time. Penguin will let you craft new weapons.
I'm excited
mods,
about this for
traversal
sure.
Mods, or grenades. And there are some interesting guns here, like Bugs A-Poppin', that will not do damage to a Terminant, but will slow down every enemy within 10 meters. And there was this one slot machine grenade that was also pretty fun. Each
That did look like this looks a lot like Borderlands to me.
All of that is on top of weapons and mods that work together to give you.
This is what I'm
buffs
most excited about
when
with
you
this
pair,
game, to be
say,
honest.
two gizmo gear pieces together to do more burning damage, but with the trade-off that grenades do 50% less damage, but have a 100% chance to burn all enemies.
Yeah, the
I know
Infinity
I've been really
set
hard on
bonuses look
Suicide
awesome.
Squad killed the Justice League in this preview, and believe me, I really want to be wrong about it. Not only is Rocksteady one of my favorite developers, but this genre is one I've spent far too much time in across Destiny, Anthem, and yes, even Marvel's Avengers. But while there is a story here that makes me wonder where the heck it's all going, I left the preview even less optimistic than when I came
It's
in.
unfortunate.
Here's hoping Suicide Squad wins me back when it releases on February 2nd. Are you excited about Suicide Squad?
So overall, I largely disagree with what he said here. I think there's a lot of reasons to be still excited about the game. But everyone should be fully aware of what the game is when they come into it. It is a live service looter shooter. There's going to be heavy build crafting, so you're going to want to make sure that you have your right build before you jump into it and you have the best time. Co-op is probably going to be better than solo in a lot of different cases. You're probably going to have to adjust and take things on and off. The UI, you're going to have to adjust the voice comms if you are in parts of the mission where you're just kind of grinding levels or anything like that. And that's all stuff that I think people who are fans of Rocksteady might not like as much, so that's understandable, but it is part of this genre that I very much enjoy. I was a fan of the Avengers. I am going to be a fan of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. I already know that for a fact. Even if the game has some issues, I will acknowledge those issues, but also say that I'm having a good time, so that's what matters to me. And that's where people should judge the game for themselves. Take a look at the gameplay, take a look at the way it plays, the different ups and downs that it's going to have, the positives and negatives, and determine for yourself if it's a game that is going to excite you or not. And if not, then skip it, and that's fine. I think everyone should have that option. If they just don't want to play it, that's fine. But I think a lot of people are rushing to judgment based on a small glimpse of a game that would, honestly, I made a whole video saying that I think this game would benefit from an open beta. I absolutely stand by it, and I'm a little bit bummed that we don't get that. But anyway, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, helps me out tremendously. Shows you want to see more Suicide Squad content from me going forward. My name is JoPa. Have a good one. I'll catch you all later.